My name is George Dong, and I'm from Coronado, California. And I was a staff sergeant in the Air Force.
How did you happen to get involved with Joe Ramirez and the ground crew that took care of Witchcraft?
I got on Witchcraft at Wendover, Utah, on when Witchcraft had but 14 flying hours, and we pulled a acceptance check on it and accept that ship for the 467th Bomb Group. And the ground crew was Joe Ramirez, crew chief, George Down, myself, that's assistant crew chief, Ray Betcher, the head mechanic, sergeant, and the two corporals was Joe Better and Walter Elliott. And we went overseas with Witchcraft.
How old were you?
I'm the oldest man in the outfit. I'm almost 81 now.
How old were you when you went into the service?
About 35 or 36 years old.
Why did you go into the service?
Well, the country's at war and they need men that, I was an automobile mechanic and they need mechanics. But then I have one wrist here that's an accident before I got in the service that has no bone in it. And of course, Dr. Mann knows about it. But then there was a shortage of mechanics and he said, do you want to go? I said, well, not exactly, but I've trained with the rest of the men and I'll take a chance with the rest of them.
When you were in England working on the base at Rackheath, what was it like to work with those ground crew members that you had?
At Rackheath? Well, all our work was in the open. We don't have a shelter or hangar or anything to work on the aircrafts. So it got pretty hairy at times, you know, working out in the rain, and it did snow at Rackheath after all, you know, and it got pretty cold working out in the open, but we always more or less managed. There was one time I remember we was working on the aircraft to get it ready for dawn flight, and there was an air raid, and this we was working at night. So we threw a tarpaulin over the engine and kept in order to get it out by morning, and we worked by flashlight. And we did complete that engine and had our Witchcraft out to the flight line ready to go on that bomb mission in the morning.
What kind of a crew chief was Joe?
He got along well with us men. And all of us realized that we had a job to do over there, and we always worked together, and we always and each man knows exactly what to do on the crew, and that's one reason why we have maximum maintenance on Witchcraft. For instance, on engine change, we got right down to the fact that we have two men preparing the new engine for installation. And Joe and I will be up there on the crew chief stand removing the old engine. And by the time we're ready to throw that engine in, why the Ray Betcher and Better and Elliott, those three fellows will have that other engine off the stand and ready to go on up to the airplane. That way, why, we had a record time of changing an engine on a B-24 in 6 hours flat. And for 4 or 5 men, why, that's really fast work. But you got to know that. And another thing is on our turbocharger removal replacement, we was able to do that faster than anybody because all the rest, they are heavy. They have to use a jack to do it, hydraulic jack, the rest of the crews. We have Joe Better, and he's big as a horse and big as strong as an elephant. And he can lift up one of those turbos on there, and we turn the box over, and we pat Joe Vedder's back. We put a padding on there, we put the supercharger on there, and he would put his arm and leg and raise it right on up and act as a jack and lift that heavy turbocharger, and we was able to line it and install a supercharger without have to wait for jack equipment and all that. And we really can put a supercharger there in fast time because it's flexible, and you know, we could move forward or backwards and so forth, or up and down to align those bolt holes.
Did the other crews on the other planes know how good you were?
Other type of planes?
No. Did the other crews on the other planes know how
Yes,
good?
occasionally. We work with each other on those things, and if there's a bad damage or a plane, another crew that's late, why they'll fall together, and we have a line chief named Tom Sorenko, and that fellow really knows his B-24s, and he's not afraid to show you how exactly a shortcut on doing mechanical work. That's one thing that made me the whole B-24 crew in our outfit works together. Nobody tried to delay or shirk their duty or anything like that. That's why our outfit is tops on maintenance, because everybody works together and everybody helps everybody out if they're in the hole.
Do you think that's because you had the support of Colonel Shower?
Yes, it's because of the fact that we have a superior leader in Colonel Shower. Colonel Shower is the type of colonel that do not fly a desk. He's out there on the front plane and leading his men into combat. And a man like that, might say, you can follow him to hell and back. And you don't mind at all. And you admire a man like that.
What story can you tell us that would be interesting to persons for history about witchcraft?
Well, there have been quite a few hairy little things, like that time Witchcraft didn't come back with the rest of the outfit, and an engine was shot out in it. And I just met the pilot here today, and I was talking to him on that. And he said his engine was shot out, and he had to lose power. He couldn't keep up with the group, so he dived down lower on the lower group, and he bombed with the lower group, and he came back. But of course, meanwhile, our group came home, and Witchcraft was missing. And we was really worried. You don't know how the ground crew really have a kind of a sickening feeling in your stomach when your plane don't come back. Because after all, they're our buddies, you know, and we've talked to them in a few minutes, and if they don't come back, why, it really gets hairy. And that time we lost the Pearls of Pauline. She had a direct hit on she's a sister ship of Witchcraft, and she had received a direct hit on her Bombay, and her bomb load went off. And I always thought, they always told me that there was no survivors. And last night, I met a fellow that said he was the only survivor to the Pearls of Pauline. He said that he was riding along, and suddenly he just felt himself going straight down, and he was semi-conscious, and he went straight on down, and he finally managed to pull his chute out and land safely. But the rest of the crew was, of course, was killed in the bombard.
Did he say where they were hit, what the raid was?
The name of the survivor?
No. Where was the Perils of Pauline hit on the bomb run?
Oh, I don't remember. I think it's the Munich run. that it happened on. And we load all types of bombs and so forth, and do a lot of work which we don't really, as a crew, you know, as a crew chief and assistant crew chief, why Joe and I are former automobile mechanics, and we do electrical work, help the electricians at times, you know, on their electrical problems. And even on D-Day, we load and reload and fuse bombs for the ordnance crew, which we don't really have to do.
What do you remember about D-Day?
What?
What do you remember about D-Day?
Well, we, the ground crew, it's around the clock bombing. And we just didn't have no time to even go down to the mess hall to eat. And Colonel Chow ordered soup and sandwich to be brought up by truck to the crew to eat. So we didn't have time to, no sleep, no nothing. And so that's all we had. And we went 16 days and 16 nights, but I only remember 4 of those nights. And I remember looking around one time, and everybody looked like a zombie, lost weight, and hollow-eyed, and staggering around like asleep. And I remember they changed bomb loads one time, 2,000-pound bombs. They had 4 of those bombs laying around, and it was raining, and we was dog-tired, no place to even sit down, no, nothing. So the only place we could do was we'd straddle these, each one of us, when the airplane went up, we just straddled these 2,000-pound bombs and just laid on the bomb and catnap until the first thing, I just dozed off, and in no time, the airplane's not gone more than an hour or hour and a half on each mission on D-Day, very short runs. And I hardly closed my eyes, and somebody shook me in the shoulder, witchcraft back, start refueling them and reloading bombs on her. So that's what we had to do. And that's what we did. It's just a job, you know. You might call us a bunch of misplaced civilians as far as that's concerned, but we had a job to do overseas, and we went over and we did that job, and we want to get the hell home after it's finished, and that was all there's to it.
How did you feel when you separated from Witchcraft?
What?
How did you feel when you had to leave Witchcraft behind?
Well, Joe and I came home on Witchcraft, and we landed at Bradley Field, Connecticut. And after we landed at Bradley Field, Connecticut, we went over. I've seen the men that came back with us. They went and kissed the ground, some of them. I've seen them scoop up a piece of the ground and good old United States soil and put it in their pocket. And Joe and I, we went over to Witchcraft, gave the Witchcraft's butt a kiss, and that was the last time we saw Witchcraft. And there have been many persons has asked us, do you know what happened to Witchcraft? No, we can't. But I just said, well, every time I look at my aluminum pot and pan, I just let out a sigh. But I don't think, I think they just scrapped Witchcraft with the rest of those airplanes.
We know what you did for the war. What did the war do for you?
Before the war or after?
No, what did the war do for you?
Do for me?
Yes.
Well, I can say one thing. Before, I was an automobile mechanic when I went in. And owing to my injury, I could have got, got out of the service, be a 4F instead of one. But I feel that well, if the rest's going to take a chance, well, I'll take a chance. And they sent me through aviation mechanic school and so forth, and getting experience working on aircraft. And during Korea, I had, they wanted some aviation mechanic over a Naval Air Station at North Island. And I applied, and I was surprised. They took me right away, no question asked, and so forth and so on. And I got security, what they call clearance and so forth. And I worked with them for about 21 years on, but I work fighter jobs. Of course, I've been retired 18 years, and the F-4 and the F-8 are the top fighter in them days, but now they're obsolete, of course, now, you know. Airplanes get obsolete just as fast as automobiles. Every year they change model on automobiles, and aircraft, especially military airplanes, they have changes and improvements every year, just like you would your car.
What did you think of the B-24?
I think they're a good airplane because I've been on heavy bombers. Of course, my combat's on B-24s, and I've been made temporary crew chief of a 17 one time. And the 17 don't carry as much as a bomb load as a B-24, nor it can fly as fast as a B-24. And then I was put, after the war, before BEJ Day, they put me on a B-29 bomb group and was going to send me overseas to Okinawa. And of all the people I met over there at the Kansas, Harry Walker, our line chief, was there. But he was on a station next. He was at, I was at Harbor, Kansas on B-29, and he was at Thousand Island bomb group. And that was the last I've seen of Harry Walker. Then, of course, being a previous overseas man, why they transferred them out of that 90th Heavy Bombardment Group, and all of us previous overseas were taken out of the group, and the group was sent over as a replacement group instead of a combat group on B-29.
What do you want history to remember? What do you want history to remember about your contribution to the war effort?
Well, the fact that I think we all felt that it's our job to do and to fight during the war, and as to what, no regrets, you know. It's just a job that we had to do, and we went over and we just did it, and that's all there was to it.
How do you feel about witchcraft?
What?
How do you feel about witchcraft?
How old?
How do you feel about witchcraft?
I think that's a wonderful ship. And being the champion bomber of the 8th Air Force, naturally we are proud of that ship. But we sweat blood keeping her up in the air.